Namaste and good afternoon to everybody. Respected Shri N, Sivasailam, distinguished speakers, friends and partners. Welcome to this second webinar in the series of collaboration between FICCI and Freightwallas. As you know, COVID-19 has disrupted most businesses across the globe in many ways, but common to all of these is a huge disruption in supply chain and logistics across all states, across all verticals. For non-essential category of products, demand has tanked and most manufacturing is either at a low or at a shutdown.
I'm in the webinar now.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Sivasailam. We've just gotten started. Mr. Sanjay will introduce you. Please continue, Mr. Mastan.
Mr. Mastan, you are muted. Mr. Mastan, you are muted right now.
Yeah, I was saying that while demand for non-essentials has tanked and most production is at a low or has shut down, essential categories have begun moving within a few days after the first lockdown was announced. The challenge before us now is what do we do when the lockdown is gradually lifted? Now, we have lived with this for nearly 6 weeks now, and we need to prepare ourselves for the next few weeks when the lockdown is lifted, and there are still many challenges. As you can see from the questions that we have already received, and of course during the interaction of this webinar, there will be more doubts and more questions from the participants. The timing of this webinar and the subject is extremely opportune because we are now almost at the end of 2.0, one more week to go, and then we will start seeing a lot of industries slowly opening up, and we will have a lot of challenges. How do we get people from where they are to where they need to be? How do we move products? How do we get permits? How do we get approvals from the authorities to move products? There are so many questions that every one of us has, and this webinar is going to address some of those points. So I look forward to the next 1 hour and 15 minutes with all of you. Welcome to the webinar once again. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Mr. Mastan, for your opening remarks. For those of you who don't know us at Freightwalla, I just want to quickly introduce myself and the company. I am the CEO and co-founder of Freightwalla, which is India's leading technology-enabled freight forwarding company. We use technology extensively to digitize the freight forwarding process and create a lot of efficiency and flexibility for our clients as a result. We are very happy to be working with FICCI to co-host this timely session. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that Mr. Mastan has said. I think it has been summarized quite well. But I do want to say that in this current climate, there is not a lot of clarity for individual players to develop effective lockdown and post-lockdown strategies for their companies and for their businesses. That is something we hope to address through this interactive session with the Special Secretary of Logistics, Mr. Sivasailam. A quick introduction about him. Mr. Sivasailam is an officer of the 1985 batch of the IAS, allotted to the Karnataka cadre. He graduated in mechanical engineering from Delhi College of Engineering and has an MBA from FMS, as well as a master's in social policy and planning from the London School of Economics and a postgrad diploma in intellectual property rights law from the National Law School in Bangalore. Prior to this, he served as Special Secretary in the Department of Telecom with the Government of India. And for the Government of Karnataka, he has served in the Departments of Health and Family Welfare and Forest, Ecology and Environmental Departments as the Principal Secretary. Now, of course, he is the Special Secretary of Logistics with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Without further delay, I want to hand over to Mr. Sivasailam and also thank him for agreeing to be with us in this webinar. Over to you, sir. We would love to hear more about your insights on the current situation.
Thank you, FICCI. Thank you, Mr. Zuzar Mastan and Sanjay Bhatia from of Freightwalla. I think see we are now in a situation wherein we can prove the efficacy of what I would call slowly coming back to the business as usual scenario. But even in this lockdown, there can be many gains which may be of a permanent nature. One of which may be to do with the way we do a lot of our documentation businesses, and I think that's where somebody like Freightwalla and that group comes in handy. But pardon me for being a little pessimistic on this. In the last 1 month, in spite of my best efforts, I could not get all the logistics startups who, according to me, are world beaters onto a single platform and to provide services. And I think there is a certain problem out there. And this was a wonderful opportunity for several of the startups to mainstream. And that opportunity, according to me, has been lost. I hope it's not so with Freightwalla. You missed the bus, and I think you can be history. So therefore, these are very important times as to how you need to organize this business, and these will be of permanent nature. It is important that at the level of documentation and at the level of identifying businesses, we create a platform. I did manage to encourage the ITWA group to organize a platform on Freight Exchange. Very limited nature of people putting in their requests and their demands, and then the people having trucks putting up their requirements. But I think it's a very, very cautious start to an industry which has always been a little insular. And this is an occasion to get them out and ensure that the needs are met. And I can tell you that one good thing which has happened with the freight guys, there's not too much of increase in freight rates, as you can see, and that's because of the freight guys have been at the job. They have been able to get back return cargo, and that's all happened because of networks. It has happened because of yes, communications network, but since the maybe it went on the WhatsApp and the other platforms, but it didn't go through the normal business platforms or the e-platforms which we are more familiar. But this is an occasion to do it, and it's an occasion for somebody like Sanjay to get get the businesses together and have FICCI request their businesses to be part of this initiative. I mean, if everybody, it's not necessary. There can all be there can be businesses which can be created based on social entrepreneurship model. Everything need not be a model which can be based on what I would call multiple or what I would call cream the market situation of something which is very fancy. There can always be platforms like yours which like Freightwalla, Freight Tiger, Freight, so many other are there. They're all good enough, and they need to be on one platform. And I think somebody like FICCI, which is working, I know, with all of them, need to get them onto a single platform, or at least organize an integration so that a seamless service is available. One of the things which we need to address is the issue of documentation. And if we are able to get e-documents, I think we should be through. I'm myself working on that no, I shouldn't say I'm working. The Ministry of Commerce or the Department of Commerce is working on that, on a proposal from the Ministry of Shipping. And I think we should be having some decision from the Department of Commerce sooner rather than later, because we see a need to put all our documentation on an e-platform, and that makes provides a business that itself provides a business opportunity for a whole lot of new businesses and new methods of doing businesses. Having said that, yes, as was rightly pointed out by Zuzar, we have started moving things. But I really thought that today I was talking about something on the steel sector. And there I would only like to be general and say that there has been a specific relaxation which has been provided to industries which are of continuous nature. And steel and such other factories, I mean, the blast furnace cannot be switched on and switched off every day. And the other processes are also of such a nature that they are of continuous nature. A blast furnace takes time to start and it takes time to cool off as well. And I thought that steel making was a continuous process industry, and that's an area where some progress can be made, because we need to get our major industries functional in order to ensure some sort of kickstart effect. If industries don't start and we just keep on telling that essential foods and things should move, now the question which will then arise will be, how will the people get the money to buy those, as long as we are talking about a market-oriented economy where people have money and they go to the market and buy their things. It's not something which everybody is made to sit at home and you are given a packet of entitlements at home. You need to earn it. And as long as we have an economy which is based on livelihoods, I think time has come to quietly but very, very responsibly start looking at it. And that was mentioned by in the initial remarks by both Zuzar and Sanjay. And I think that time has come for individual industries to ensure that this is some sort of a health system which we are going to enforce in our organization. Because COVID continues to be an ailment where if one fellow is sick, almost 200 or 300 persons in your organization can go out of commission. And those are actually risky things for any organization. So you need to put in place a health mechanism by which you come to know that a person coming to office is tested. Maybe everybody lines up to be tested or in a manner so that there is a cycle which is going on for testing, so that somebody who is found to be even slightly sick is immediately cordoned off so that the others are not affected. This is a mechanism which we need to do I don't know whether, obviously protocols will come, but there are several of us who are already off the blocks, particularly in the logistics sector. And we need to put something in which we feel, which we have been practicing so far, something like social distancing. I know that when a person travels by truck, he is socially distanced anyway. I mean, he's the only guy who is traveling. So to that extent, we are safe. But the place where he has stops for lunch or dinner, and the place where he sleeps, those are all areas which need to be addressed. And that's what is going on the ground in the matter of dabas and things like that. And that's why the progress may be a little slow, but dabas are slowly and surely opening on the highways. And several of you would be able to have some evidence of that, and better than me, because I am not moved on the ground, particularly on the highways. But I'm going by reports, and you might be having more nuanced report of what I feel. The second important thing to note is we need to get our processes streamlined in our organization, because we might have I don't know whether I do believe that several or private organizations or businesses will have just the enough staff in order to perform. I mean, we can talk of excess staff in government, but I don't think private sector doesn't employ too much of excess staff. So you need to, and in that excess staff, if certain limitations have to be practiced, I think it has to be, you might have to have certain staggered working hours so that the work is still serially organized in an office for somebody else to come and take over. So you might have staggered working hours for staff is a thing which is important going forward. I would only address one more issue, largely related to my sector. Before I listen to my other panelists and also take questions if they are addressed to me. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. The key issue which I would be looking at is in the logistics. The industry is fragmented. It has got its own advantages. It has got its own disadvantages. It's obviously its great disadvantages if one fragment is is not functional. It affects the entire chain. So you don't have a substitute for it. And freight forwarders and CHAs are an important part of that chain. They are an essential part of business. And it is very and if to some extent they are handicapped, I think the strength of the chain is affected to that extent. There may be other segments in the chain which may be affected, but it is very essential that institutions like FICCI and platforms like Freightwalla are able to get those things. What we are presently doing on a WhatsApp through communication messages, it should be transactions of that nature should be enabled on platforms. And the time has come for even platforms to not necessarily to buy into another platform, but you can always have a capability of plug into each other so that all of you are benefited. And that will be my message to the new businesses and new ways of doing businesses going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sivasailam. Next, I will request Mr. Manap Majumdar from FICCI to speak and introduce some of our industry representatives who would also like to address you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puneet, and thank you so much, Special Secretary Sir, for that insightful address. I'm sure some of the issues will come back during the industry representatives intervention as well as broad Q&A. Thank you again, sir. Now we'll move on to next part of our program, which is some sector and industry representatives will make brief interventions. They can continue. What I would request all the presenters, all the panelists to kindly limit their intervention to maximum 4 minutes. 4 minutes, I repeat. That will be. I will maybe probably at the end of 4. I will just remind you gently. I hope that would be okay. So we have got an interesting panel of industry representatives. I would first like to introduce all of them and then request one after another. We have Mr. Vijay Kumar, who is the head of Federation of Freight Forwarders Association of India with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Vijay Kumar, for joining us. We have with us Mr. Radhakrishnan, who is the group chairman of Clearship and past chairman of BCBA, Brihan Mumbai Custom Brokers Association. We also have Mr. Sunil Arora, who is heading the other important segment of air cargo. He is currently heading the ACAI, Air Cargo Agents Association of India. We also have, I think Mr. Mittal is here to join us due to a conflicting engagement, but Mr. Mittal would be joining us soon. Mr. Ajay Mittal, who is the chairman and managing director of Arshia Limited. So these 4 panelists are there, and we are expecting Mr. S. Padmanabhan from National Association of Container Freight Stations to join us if possible, but that I'll find out in a minute or two. But at the moment we have got these 4 panelists. So with that, I would first request Mr. Radhakrishnan to kindly begin his intervention, and you have 4 minutes, sir. Sir, the floor is yours. Mr. Radhakrishnan.
Sir, please unmute yourself. Please unmute.
Mr. Radhakrishnan, you have to please unmute your microphone if you can hear us. Mr. Radhakrishnan, you have to, we can't hear you. You have to unmute your microphone, please. Chandan and Mr. Puneet, if you can do it from remote.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it is okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to Special Secretary Logistics, Mr. Sivasailam. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Freightwalla and FICCI for organizing this webinar. Sir, I would like to take the opportunity, Sivasailam sir, to wish you advance happy birthday for tomorrow and have a great birthday. And starting with, I would like to say that I would like to split my address into 2 portions. One is related to workforce of logistics. Another is related to the processes. When I say workforce, sir, workforce is a very important aspect of our business. And when we want to reach our people to the destination, we find a bit of a difficulty in getting the permission. So if there is a single source from where we can get this permission, because today we have got to go to different police station, different port authorities, maybe to customs. So as a logistics secretary, if you can really create a nodal office from where we could get our passes so that we are able to easily commute and reach the destination. Number 2, sir, with regard to our workforce, we are very concerned about their safety and their how they will be prevented from getting into this infection. Because these places where they are going to go, there is a need for a social distancing very much, because which is currently not happening very well. And also there is a need for sanitization, regular sanitization for all these places, whether it is CFS or whether it is airport. All these places do not have enough sanitization for our people to be safe and secure there. And we are also concerned about a recent, I heard about a Ministry of Home Communication, which says that if there is any employee getting COVID, the directors and owners, there will be FIR against them. So how are we going to get protected? Because we are exposing our people to so much of risk, and how these people are going to be, how the owners are going to get protected in case some of our staff is going to get into COVID because of their exposure. This is major fear that all of us have today. And also we have found that intercity transportation or interstate, like in Delhi, we are going to cross borders, Noida to Delhi, or from Gurgaon to Haryana to Delhi. So there is a problem for interstate movement also, we have this problem. So how these are all going to be addressed by the ministry. Then second point with regard to the processes, we have been talking about this DO electronically surrendering the bill of lading. Of course, you mentioned that you are going to come out with some kind of a procedure which can be implemented. But the second thing is the detention and demurrage, which possibly there is a directive for waiver. But I do not know how this is going to be implementable, because that is only remaining as a directive, because at the ground level there is nothing much happening with regard to waivers. Secondly, sir, there is nothing being talked about on the export front, because even on the export, the containers have landed up in the factories and they are not getting moved, but there is a detention now happening on export containers which is in the factory. So if this can be also addressed, I would really like to know what type of relief as Ministry of Commerce or Secretary Logistics can offer us. And with these few questions, I do not want to take much of my time. I'll limit my question because I got many panelists who may have a similar question. So I'll leave it to them. Thank you, Manab. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Radhakrishnan. We appreciate. Thank you very much for raising those pertinent questions and issues. Now I turn to Mr. Sunil Arora. As I said earlier, he is heading Akai. Mr. Arora, kindly unmute your microphone first, and the floor is yours now. We have got 4 minutes. Mr. Arora, please.
Thank you, Mr. Majumdar, and Namaskar, Sivasailam, sir. Firstly, congratulations to FICCI. Without getting into too many goodwill words, because the time is very short, I'll straight away come to the important aspects. One is that we have gone through this pandemic situation in the last 1 month. We have been discussing a lot of coordination committees and actions to be taken. But at this moment, the biggest challenge I see is the processes and the way forward when we come out of this situation. That is going to be a big challenge, because the after effects of any big situation like this is the challenge that we have to together meet the industry requirements. So first thing, I will probably would like to say it in short and in point wise, because there are certain issues which can be further deliberated long. But one thing I would like to mention here is first, the logistic cost has to be in control. It must not go out of hand after this pandemic scenario. Mr. Sivasailam has been the key advocate for reducing logistic cost across the board, whether it was sea freight industry or air freight industry, and we thank him for some very great initiatives that he has taken. So logistic cost has to be kept in control, and this includes air freight cost. This includes sea freight rate. This includes the custodians and the facilitators in the channel of EXIM to control their cost, and not to see as an opportunity to cover up the losses that has happened because of this pandemic. This is very important, and special attention I would mention is that the international air freight cost eventually adds to the cost of our product, and the moment it adds to the cost of our products worldwide will become non-competitive and will be thrown out of the world market. As such, crores of rupees or crores of dollars of orders have been cancelled worldwide. They are looking at the Western world, which is the main market for India, is looking on this very seriously, and as such we are paying huge cost to bring in our raw material from the east, that is from China and the part of the continent. This is one thing. Second point that I would like to mention is that the working environment at all the ports and airports has to be relaxed further. There have been certain serious initiatives taken by CBIT, like e-gate pass being issued now, auto out of charge. These I'm sorry to say that these all have come into implementation or came into action because of this pandemic. But anyhow, as such, it is a very welcoming gesture. Similar reforms has to be created. As Mr. Sivasailam said, that there is going to be one industry platform which Ministry of Commerce is working for. These are the initiatives which will make our working scenario much easier and much trade friendly, so that the work has to be done in a much speedier way without human intervention. And when human intervention gets over, there is a precaution element involved into that, and we'll be also safe at our ports. Third, what important thing I would like to mention is that all the trade associations under the banner of Ministry of Commerce should coordinate more often and more frequently, primarily associations like MTOI, ITWA, FFI, ACAI, and similar other organizations. If I have not named few, CAI is one of them. We need to make it a mandatory interaction platform amongst all of us. and results and discussion arising out of these meetings will certainly bring in a very remarkable change in the industry. And another thing, what I would like to say is that freight forwarding industry is facing a big challenge in freight payments to airlines, because unfortunately the industrial parks, major industrial areas in and around metro cities have been shut, and two important states are like Delhi and NCR and Maharashtra, Pune, where we see a lot of export belts, and even in UP, these are all shut. So our payments have got badly stuck. Hundreds of crores of rupees of freight payment has been already done to the airlines, certain are pending. So there is where we'd like to have a little apathy from the government and also from the airlines to understand that from where the industry is going to bring this money. The banks are also not supporting.
Time check.
Yeah. Thank you. And the last what I would like to say is that like the way there are doctors, nurses, paramedicals to the healthcare system, so is the logisticians, freight forwarder and custom brokers to the exim and economy. And insurance for our workers is another important aspect that we would like to take care. And our workers at the airport should be given security and safety. Few more points, maybe during the discussion, I'll take them up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arora. Thanks for those points. And some of the similar points or same points have also been received at our end by few of our members. Thank you. Now I turn to another important segment of the logistics landscape. It's my pleasure to invite now Mr. A.V. Vijaykumar, who is head of the FFAI, Federation of Freight Forwarders Associations of India. Mr. Vijaykumar, kindly unmute your audio and please start your video, and your time starts now. Kindly limit your observations up to 4 minutes. Mr. Vijaykumar, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Manab. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for joining with us, sir. Mr. Sivasailam, IAS, Special Secretary Logistics. As all the industry partners knows that the customs clearances are happening, that documentations are happening, even though that is very limited numbers in customs, but digitalization helped us a lot to do that filing of the documents and payment of duty and including the out of charge, because there are simplifications made by the CBIC helped a lot for doing that. But the major challenge which the custom brokers and the transporters are facing as of now, within the limited available drivers, we want to move the cargo from the CFSs and the terminals, but the industries are not open and receiving the cargo. It's a great big challenge from our side. That makes a lot of difficulty for us, because if the post-lockdown situation, it will become a big issue to move the cargo. This number of containers are not moved now in partially. Otherwise, it is a very difficult task for all the industry partners to move the containers from the terminals and CFS to the factories. The local administrations are in each locations, depends on the situations. They are not issuing passes to everybody, and the working of our staffs and employees, commuting is one of the big challenges. Already Mr. Radhakrishnan explained to you for that. The biggest problem now we are facing is the movement of cargo and receiving the cargo in import cycle. Export cycle, of course, the empty container yards are still, it's not open. The local administrations are not permitted them to do that in some locations, in most of the locations. In industrial area, of course, it's that all are comes under red spots. The local administration is not permitting them to open for that. The state chief secretaries are given some guidance for that, but still the local Gram Panchayat and other, because it's all in the remote locations, not inside the city. There are some difficulty we are facing for taking the empty containers also for that. As far as the customs clearance concerned, yes, custom brokers are working and with limited staffs, and most of the operations are digitalized. We are able to do the processing, and few of the shipping lines are with skeleton stuff they are doing, but they are issuing the delivery orders are online, and empty containers also we are able to offload some of the locations, not all of the places. But biggest challenge is that the opening of the factories and receiving the cargo. The same way for export. The containers, you have to send that empty container because there is no workforce there, and they are not permitted as per my knowledge. That is the main reason they are telling to us. The industrial location, they are not able to load the cargo. That is the reason we are not able to do that. But the terminals and CFSs are working, but almost all the CFSs got choked. Now, majority in Chennai, it's about more than 25,000 containers moved to CFS from the terminals. And Mumbai, it's more than 75,000 as per my knowledge. It is about almost all the CFSs are full. And if you are not able to move these containers immediately before the lockdown, at least half of it, it will be very difficult to in a post-lockdown situation. This is from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vijay Kumar. We appreciate, and I'm sure some of the points and issues you've raised will be taken up during the broader Q&A session. Thank you again. Our last speaker on this panel is Mr. Ajay Mittal. He is the CMD, Chairman and Managing Director of Arshia Limited. I would like to welcome Mr. Mittal, who has joined us a little late, but now he is with us. Mr. Mittal, kindly unmute your audio, start your video, and please go ahead. You have got 4 minutes, Mr. Mittal.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Freightwalla and FICCI and Special Secretary Logistics for being on this conference. India has been always suffering with lack of infrastructure. At this point of time, we have created infrastructure in our free trade warehousing zone, which can actually accommodate almost 10,000 containers, both in NCR and in the Panvel region. And we are more than happy to offer zero ground rent to bring in containers from CFSs and from ICDs. And we have our own rail and our trucking, which can do so. These containers can be emptied in our free trade zone warehouses itself without payment of duty. And as and when the factories open up, they can take the product out, file the bill of entries to whatever extent they need to file bill of entries, and then pay the duties and use the product for their manufacturing. This is an offer that we are giving to everybody who's on this panel today or on this conference today. And sir, we would request your help in guiding us how we can help clearing of at least 10,000 containers, if not more. I know the jam is or the congestion is much more, but we would look for your guidance how we can do this to help the country.
Okay, Mr. Mittal, have we lost you or you are done?
No, I'm done. Thank you so much. I just needed 2 minutes.
Mittal, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the designated industry representatives, panelists, for your very significant, and I must thank you all for kindly sticking to the time limit. That really helps. With that, I would turn it over to Mr. Zujar Mastan, Chair of FICCI Logistics Committee, and Mr. Sanjay Bhatia from Freightwalla to kindly jointly moderate some of the questions and answers we have received ahead of this program. Unless Special Secretary Sir, you would like to respond to few points raised now, or if you say it's okay, then we can first take few questions which we have received from various participants. Sir, we'll go by your advice.
Thank you, Manap. I'll try to respond to three of the eminent panelists' submissions. First, as you can see, some of the interests of our logistics supply chain players are not aligned in a manner which we would expect it to be. The reason is very simple. For example, Radhakrishnan spoke about what is going to be the concession at CFSs and other places. That's what is. I agree. If it in a place like in a situation we could have such a provision, but unfortunately it is creating perverse incentives for the trade. You just keep it, and people are telling, okay, it's free, you keep storing it, and people are not being cooperative on that. So I am not in favor of any incentives for this thing. People should pay if there is a if their containers are there, they better pay the ground rent for it. And I don't appreciate, because my experience in the first thing up to 14th has not been very good. Because even very essential things which were in the port were not removed. It was told, well, let it wait, no problem. So I don't think that, I think we should not create a situation by which we can have certain perverse incentives. I can only say about one thing, that if the truck is already, if you have organized for the truck and the truck is known and it will take some time, then I would agree to that concession, as was done by Mial and Dial. Mial started it in the Mumbai port. They said no concession, but if you are able to tell that my truck is coming, they would say, okay, please give me the details, and we will allow if the truck is, because at any point in time not more than 20 to 25 vehicles can stand outside. And therefore, when that truck is called out and it is available on the queue, they said, okay, even if it takes 2 days, they said, no, we won't charge you because you have come on time. And so that's the way we should go. And I don't think there can, I'm not one of the supporters of blanket extension of freebies. Don't expect me to back it. I mean, I did do it in the initial thing, but no longer, because it is creating perverse incentives. Freight forwarders, I would appeal to freight forwarders to coordinate with your other colleagues in the CFSs and in the trucking industry, and organize it on stream. If you organize it and it takes 2 days to evacuate, I agree with you, those 2 days should not be charged. But you cannot say that you came 2 days, your effective time of working was 2 days, and you ask for a 20-day concession. I don't think I will be in a position to address that. And it is very difficult to administer it as well. Yes, there has been a problem. Our friends in the CFSs have declined to extend the concession. And this is a problem of fragmentation of the trade. And maybe we may have to live with it. And this is not the time for reprisals. But I think the support for those CFSs may not continue in future. That will always be there. Because you didn't come to the party when there was a crisis situation, and that feeling is there among all in government, including me, that CFSs associations have not come on board when it was time for them to show some flexibility, which they did not do. And there is everything. What can we go by the view, but what cannot be cured has to be endured. But going forward, maybe we might say that CFSs are open in terms of customs had stopped the issue of new CFSs. Maybe that may not last any longer, and we may say it is open business, and that license is also open. So all those changes may come in future, but presently, yes, among all the institutions in the trade, the CFS associations have not been quite forthcoming in providing relief to our exempt trade. But maybe we might have to take it under the chin and move forward. But there is nothing one can say beyond it. But I'm pretty certain that if some of them go to the court, and the associations back them up in the court, the amount of money which the CFSs may have to spend in litigation may well be worth the concessions which they would be giving. So there are methods in India by which people can be brought to senses, and this is possibly one of them. But this is for the Freight Forwarders Association to take it up and advise their customers. But for the time being, please evacuate as fast as possible and reduce the charges. And it is not necessary that in future we need to back them when a CFS related issue comes. That's a matter of for the future, but that's very much on the cards looking forward. So this is what I would call the politics of the trade, and it is very important. And no human endeavor is devoid of its politics, and this is no exception. And there is no point in me being a secretary and keeping it under the carpet. There is and not telling that nothing has happened. A lot of happened, and a lot of unsavory things have happened, which has cost our trade, our exempt trade dearly. Which is not necessarily of the making of our exempt trade. So I thought I have addressed that between Radhakrishnan and Vijay Kumar. As far as air cargo is concerned, I think as Sunilji mentioned, I think we are far better off in that air cargo. But I'm also distressed by a development which came to be yesterday, that one of the biggest air freight operators, Blue Dart, charged 125 rupees per kg to move a product from Lucknow to Varanasi instead of rupees 7 ordinarily. Those types of businesses should be shut down in India, if you ask my view. And I think Sunil should take it up very strongly that any of these people raising prices will be boycotted, and their permission to operate in India be withdrawn. I mean, if we can live with a lockdown, we can live without them also. It should be as simple as that. And going forward, this is important because you cannot send a view that in India sab kuch chalta hai. That attitude should not be there. So far, our trade has not overcharged. I'm telling among all our players, there has not been any overcharging from our trade. Somebody like Ajay Mittal are always coming, and there are many Ajay Mittals who have actually come and said, "Come on, I can do this. I can provide you this much of facility, and this much you will have to pay." After all, they are also in the business and they need to earn something. But a lot of people have done a lot of things, and we are very grateful to them as far as the logistics trade is concerned. But one very important thing, since my colleagues from the federations are all there, I need to tell you that in these close to a month which has happened, nobody has, except for one odd complaint in relation to Blue Dart, nobody has complained that either my freight forwarder has overcharged me, or my CHA has overcharged me, or my port has overcharged me, or they have cheated me. Nothing of that sort has happened, and I'm very grateful to my colleagues in the federations for having maintained this integrity of purpose. Beyond that, I would only like to say that going forward, as regards the cargo, I think Sunil is very much aware of those details. We are also interacting on the WhatsApp portal. But I would still appeal to you that if you could have something like an air cargo portal, something like what we have in Freightwalla. It doesn't mean that once you use their platform, you lose your identity. It's not like that. No platform will ever do a business, and no platform should ever do a business. But you can always get some of these Indian innovations and streamline it for the world, because it has an advantage. As Vijay Kumar will know, we have been, and Mr. Radhakrishnan also will know, as people who are who promote the Indian exempt trade and who are at the apex of this especially the associations like yours, it is very essential. If you want to have your own methodology and to be or rather to have your own verchasva in world trade, it is very essential that you should have your own platform. Because once you say that you have your own trade platform in which all traders are there, as a nation, we can always say that anybody who wants to do business in India has to come into that platform. They may do any form of business decision, their business, what I would call processes may be different, but the platform will have to be an Indian platform, and that is where all freight forwarders can be there. And to ensure, now by trying to be alone, you lose the benefit of being on a national platform. But being on a national platform, it is also possible for you to do individual businesses. No business will ultimately become collective. They will always be the individual entrepreneurship will always be the way by which business will ever and always be done. And therefore, my request to you would be, since this is a platform which I have got unexpected, as I must say, but to promote a view and request some of the major trade bigwigs, if I can say, they are definitely bigwigs because they carry with them the support of so many of our logistics partners to actually decide to come on such platforms and organize business in your own way, which will never ever be compromised. I thought I'll cover this in respect of the submissions made by my three business colleagues, and I hope I have been reasonably forthright in addressing some of the issues which my three colleagues had raised. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your forthright and candid views. I'm sure industry colleagues, associations would certainly deliberate amongst themselves with their members. Thanks once again. Sir?
I just wanted to make one point. One of the issues which was raised about that FIR, there's a tweet which has been issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs which clarifies the position. It says MHA guidelines misinterpreted. Penalties under the Disaster Management Act are applicable if offence occurs with consent, cognizance or negligence of the employer. So there's no need to be unnecessarily perturbed on that. That only applies if it is with the negligence of the employer.
Okay, thank you, and I would like to welcome Anand. Thanks for joining. Sir, Special Secretary, sir, with your kind permission, can we now turn to the questions and answer session, and can we go in for 5 minutes, sir?
Welcome.
Thank you. So now I turn it over to Mr. Juzar Mastan and Mr. Sanjay Bhatia to kindly moderate it jointly. We have got 15 minutes as Special Secretary Sir has kindly indicated. Over to you, Mr. Mastan and Mr. Bhatia.
Sanjay, we already had the question, so why don't you start with the first one?
I will do that. Thank you. Mr. Sivasailam, sir, thank you so much for your notes. I think it is already incredibly helpful to get so much clarity from the Ministry of Commerce on what is the thought process going forward. I would like to first say that, these questions that Mr. Juzar and I are fielding to you, they have been received from the participants who have joined the webinar today. So we have collated some of these questions, figured out which ones are the most common questions, and would now like to field them to you. The first one that I wanted to touch upon was something that you had mentioned a little earlier regarding e-documentation. Would it be possible for you to share some more clarity on what the thought process is regarding e-documentation? As we look at the existing industry right now, it seems as though every operator has its own guidelines. So I think there is a request or desire from the wider community that we have some common guidelines issued by the ministry under which all the operators should operate, basically.
Let me tell you.
Sir, sorry to come in between. Sir, I will go by your advice. Do we take a cluster of 2-3 questions and then revert to you for your response, or you would like to address them one after another? As you say, sir.
One after another. Otherwise, okay. I'll miss the thread. Sanjay, there is a letter from the Secretary Shipping to Secretary Commerce, which has also been shared widely in the web. I mean, it has been shared in various forums. E-forums, it has been shared in various e-forums and in WhatsApp groups. It has been shared. Now, what it says is, and it has got the support of the entire fraternity. I would say our freight forwarding communities, our CHAs, all of them are supporting it, and FILA, and the shipping lines, the NVOCCs, everybody is supporting it, and the purpose is to have an e-bill of lading, so that the whole problem of getting the e-bill of lading and then moving it and then keeping it and all that will be gone. So the purpose of having an e-bill of lading is to address this entire issue of once you have an e-bill of lading, the matter is over. And the idea is to have not only an Indian platform, put it on the port community system so that it's an Indian platform, and it can be somebody can authenticate it as a nation. So we would put it on the PCS platform, and also, but access is open to everybody. I mean, it's not that although it may be owned by IPA, even private ports are entitled, the coastal, the state ports are all entitled to be on that platform, and nobody is prohibited. There is no exclusion criteria there. The idea is to have an e-bill of lading. Now there are two issues in the e-bill of lading. One is, first of all, the easier part is to make it e-bill. It's not too difficult. That's the simplest part. The second part is to make is to have an e-bill of lading which is negotiable. That requires an approval of the RBI. These are the only two issues which we are addressing in the Ministry of Commerce, and the concerned department of the Ministry of Commerce is addressing these two issues. But there is already a request from the shipping minister. There is already a decision. As far as the decision is concerned, it is made. The decision has to come from the Ministry of Shipping, and they have already made their decision that this should be done. That's all. That is the present stand. Now we are moved into the arena of how it is to be done rather than what is to be done. What is to be done is decided. Thank you. Anant, would you like to add anything?
Only point I wanted to make was that there are two issues. One is the bill of lading which come through the LC route, and another which comes through directly where there's no LC involved. So digitizing the bill of ladings which are not on the LC route is an easier ball to crack, rather than, because then you involve foreign banks, Indian banks, etc. So it would the digitization would happen in a phased manner. First, we'll pick up those bill of ladings which are non-LC and get them digitized, and then move to the BLs which are through the LCs. That's the only point I wanted to make.
Okay, Mr. Juzar, do you want to field the next question?
Yeah, I think we have some very interesting questions. Some of them have already been answered by Mr. Sivasailam earlier. But if I may combine a few questions into one of the key issues that most of us will face in the post-lockdown or in the gradual lifting of restrictions scenario is how can we speed up and how can we inform large number of people what is the process for applying for people permits. So for example, CHA, customs, broker staffs, warehousing staff, logistics staff, people who work in manufacturing industries, those which are allowed to operate need to get to their place of work. But the challenge today is that many of them don't know how to apply, and some of them are not getting approval and not getting enough information. So if I may again pose this question to Mr. Sivasailam, any insight on this, please?
I guess that you are talking in respect of the logistics. I think a lot of us, I would also, after me, I would request Sunil also to speak, because in the air cargo sector, they have managed it brilliantly. And all what has happened is that the coordination was done by the association with the ports, which were allowed to were given to the ports, and the ports applied permission for these employees. The same thing happened in Dial, Mial, Bial, and Chennai, Hyderabad. Hyderabad are not much, of course, but Chennai, Bangalore, and all that. The association coordinated with the local administration and ensured that facilitation of what was the minimum required. And the beauty about this was nobody told that I have got 10 employees and I want 9 of them. People were quite, I would say, very considerate, and they only asked for such permits which they wanted. And I think that that is how the credibility got built up. Particularly, I've been watching the air cargo sector since 27th, and when it started really kick-starting the whole process, and they have done that, and over 3 to 4 days subsequently, it so happened that we could, there was trust in the entire system to make things happen. Until today, I don't think that the trust has been broken. And when they apply for a pass, they get it done. Previously, I think it took 2 days. Nowadays, it takes 2 hours. So that's the way to go. And you must get the port. We must get the main organization, namely the ports, into confidence, especially as far as our freight forwarding community, CHAs, are concerned, because CHAs are important. CHAs and freight forwarders are important intermediaries for our business, and it's not that their presence is not required. Their presence is required, and it can always be organized. Thank you.
Sanjay.
Mr. Sunil, would you like to add comments?
Yeah, I would like to add here 2 things. As very rightly Mr. Sivasailam said, that at Delhi airport, I would like to tell you that initially there was a problem, but now I have personally witnessed, the day before yesterday, I was personally at the airport at both the terminals, just showing my custom pass, any of the custom authority or airport authority dial pass, I was allowed to move. Other than that, Delhi Custom Broker Association has issued over 700 passes in 1 day, and there is a simple form that they have come up with, and we are trying to facilitate, and after that many more have been issued. Similarly, similar arrangements have been done with Mia in Bangalore also. They have all cooperated, and at this moment there is no problems. The export shed, import shed are fully functional. Yes, the challenge is that we the freight forwarding companies have to come forward and start our business. You know, we have to take a call that we maintain the required mandatory conditions of social distancing and sanitizing, and bring our staff to work at the airport. This is very important. But as far as passes is concerned, at all the airports, I can vouch for, it is very smooth, and all those who wish to work, their passes have been arranged.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sunil. I'd like to field the next question that we've received from the participants. I believe this one is from the more relevant to the transporters. So we are aware that there are notifications that have come out right now regarding the best practices for social distancing to run an office. Mr. Sivasailam, the question, the motive of this question is basically to understand whether in logistics itself, the ministry is thinking of any special best practices for social distancing for the truckers as well as the CFSs and the ports, are we to expect something that is going to be different from the notifications already out there, or can we treat those as the notifications to abide by? So specifically the logistics operations that happen on the ground at the ports, at the CFS, with the trucks, etc.
See, in the as a logistics division, this is largely in the arena of health, and therefore this is not a matter. Even if we issue a SOP, it will not have the credibility to go by. The best way to go by it is existing social distancing norms and practice it. If you expect an SOP to come, it may come after 5 years. How for everything to start to do, you may say, I don't have an SOP. Now, that's not the way to go about. For example, what is the SOP required when a driver is driving the vehicle? There is no SOP which is required. I mean, he's alone anyway. So, number one. Number two is, yes, there are issues. That's what I have told, that in dhabas. So, ITWA has taken the lead in organizing things at dhabas. So, a lot of, if you go to dhabas, maybe in the last 1 week, they are far different than what they used to be. The people are, the tables as it is, they have a lot of spaces, but now they are distanced to such an extent that there is no problem. So these are, see, this is not something which will be handed over to us, because everybody is following a particular norm, and we should be developing our SOPs based on the compliance of a normal norm. Rather than expect somebody else and come and tell us what we should do. I would never know how many people are there in your office and how the seating arrangement should be. But as long as you know your office, you should follow those guidelines. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is very helpful in the context of logistics. Mr. Juza?
Yeah, I see a lot of questions around documentation. And these are primarily linked to clearance at customs. So a lot of questions coming out, not just for bills of lading, but in order to clear a shipment, there are a lot of other documents like a certificate of origin, etc. And many a time, due to this unusual situation, documents are not can't move from one country to another. And a lack of documents is not allowing people to make their clearances. So if I may pose this question to some of the other panelists in this session, do you have any suggestions on how we might, as an industry, bridge this solution? How do we get over it when we don't have a certificate of origin, to be specific? Anyone? Mr. Arora, if you may start.
Yeah, I would like to state that as far as clearance at the airport is concerned, it is very smooth. Believe it or not, I have seen it personally, that shipments are being cleared with great facilitation. The custom officers are coming themselves and, you know, taking your papers, getting it examined, getting your out of charge gate pass and everything. And they are restricting even our staff to get inside. So it is very smooth. The only thing is that we need to come forward and go to the ports and clear it. I have a suggestion here. I do not know whether it is workable or not. Sivasailam sir, at all these ports where we have thousands of containers lying and respective importers are working with their custom brokers, how about we create a group of custom brokers to operate in general for these importers? Let these exporters send documents to this group of CHAs, their KYC and documents, and let them clear at an agreed cost, and let's move the containers out and shipments out of airport and ports. This can be a consortium of few authorized, well-established custom brokers at a government fixed cost. Let them clear and move out thousands of containers every day, and customs are facilitating. That's what I would say. Even the custodians are big facilitators. Yes, we'll have to come forward. There are nodal officers appointed at all these ports, and associations are always there. But I would say that mass movement of import containers and import cargo is required at the moment.
I would only like. I just want to add on the certificate of origin. the Ministry of Commerce has already negotiated with most of the FTA partners, and they have accepted and they have agreed to accept the the electronic copies of certificate of origin. So that's already done.
Correct.
So far that the non-preferential certificate of origin is concerned, a public notice DGFT has already issued that digital should be accepted, but we are in the process of digitizing the entire system of issue of certificates of origin. For preferential, it has already been digitized, and EIC is now issuing digital certificates of origin, and our partner countries have started accepting them also.
Thank you.
I just want to add something in this. The customs is accepting all the documents without any originals. You can file e-sanchit all the document online, and including the bonds and undertakings. You need not go and get any bonds physically. See, you can give an LOI and you can e-sanchit, and online you can process the bill of entry and you can clear your goods. There is no restriction on that. CBIC simplified all this procedure for that. And Mr. Sunil mentioned something. You can go. As of now, the custom brokers are working fully, and there is no issue on physical clear. The issue is only with non-availability of the trucks and other issues only for that. It's not for any reason we are not able to process. That's what I first itself I mentioned. Almost all the 90% of the documents are already filed and process is over. Only the physical clearance is only the challenge as of now. That's all. The customs clearance for that original document like certificate of origin and all, customs is already issued as circular for that. You can, with copy, you can digitally forward that document to the customs, and you can take the clearances for that.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good responses. Sanjay, I think we have time for one more question, I guess.
We are at the time limit, so I would actually request Mr. Juzer if you would like to have any concluding remarks. We have also, I'm happy to say, covered 95% of all of the questions in broad topic areas, so we can go ahead and conclude.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, before we conclude, a very special thank you to Mr. Sivasailam for making time available for this session with us. Thank you very much, sir. It's always a pleasure to listen to you, and your insights are heartwarming for the industry, if I may say so. Thank you also to all the panelists who made time for this webinar. I know that while we have answered many of the questions, there remain maybe a few that we could not touch in a format like this. I also see that there were some questions which are very specific to certain events or certain transactions. And in a forum like this, we can't handle those type of questions, so we will have to skip on those. But once again, thank you very much. Bottom line for all of us is that in the post-lockdown scenario, is very important for us as an industry to get together. I would like to make two mentions that Mr. Sivasailam made. Number one, do not rely on the government. Do not only rely on freebies. We the industry, have to take charge of our future, of our destiny. And there are many things that we can do on our own to make things moving, and we should do that. That is the first. Second, I think that the initiatives that the government is taking, like the e-platform for documentation, are wonderful. I hope that we will be able to see and work on those in weeks from now, and that will be really beneficial to the industry. And finally, in a time like this, not only are there issues, but there are opportunities. Again, I think Mr. Sivasailam said it correctly, that this is the time when we have to think out of the box, and this is the time when we have to make changes in our processes that not only help us today, but take us forward into the future. So with that, thank you very much. Pleasure having all of you on this webinar.
I'd just like to come in for just 30 seconds. One is, since we cannot see him much, I would also like to thank Mr. Anand Sarup, Joint Secretary, who has kindly joined the deliberations during the Q&A. Thank you, Mr. Sarup. And before we conclude, since we haven't asked Special Secretary, sir, do you want to make any concluding remarks? Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, thanks a lot to you for that thing which I must do. I enjoyed being here and sharing the thoughts with colleagues, my colleague, Joint Secretary Anand Swarup, Radhakrishnan, Vijay Kumar, and Mr. Sunil Arora. Yes, Juzar and Sanjay Bhatia. You are good hosts, spared me some very tricky questions. Thanks a lot. But I hope we will be able to address it going forward, working along with all of you. It's been wonderful to get all of you on the same platform, and I'm happy that some of the ideas which we've put forward on the e-platforms things has met with a general go-ahead from all of you, and that gives us strength to take things forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. With that, I will turn it back to our controller producer, Mr. Puneet. Over to you, Mr. Puneet, for concluding it formally. So we might have lost Puneet, so I'm just taking it from on his behalf. Thank you.
Apologies, I'm on here.
Okay, okay, please.
I was just muted, but yeah, I would just like to echo. Thank you everyone for joining. We know this is a challenging time with many problems that we haven't faced before, and I'm glad we're getting together as a community to try and address some of these common issues that we all have together. So appreciate everyone joining. We will share the notes post this meeting with everybody who has registered. And we will also share a link to the video. So if you've missed part of it, you're able to come back and stream it. And we're looking forward to hosting more sessions along with FICCI and other esteemed panelists to continue to engage in the conversation. Thank you all. Bye.
The webinar stands concluded. Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, Puneet, you can